Hey, I'm so happy you stopped by and you're going to let me tell you about this piece. This piece is called No Time to Lose, and it's got a very interesting story. It comes from a book by a guy named Ed Lemon, and the book's called Boss Cowman. Now, this guy, he lived during the great trail drive period, late 1860s all the way through about the 1880s there. And he was one of the top cattlemen of his day. And he brought up herds from Texas up into Montana, and he ended up in Montana. And he wrote this book, Boss Cowman, about all of his experiences. And one of the things he talks about in that book is something that I had never read. And one thing I love to do is find really obscure stories and then put them into sculpture so that it's a permanent record, and it makes for wonderful compositional possibilities. So I'm always looking for something like that, and this piece is composed of that. Now, this story goes something like this. Ed Lemon said that during his time on the trail drive era and that, they had certain outfits, and they were called lantern outfits. Now, all of us have seen in the movies or read about whenever there was a stampede of cattle, you'd hear about them trying to get the cattle to mill, trying to get them to come into a circle. Well, one of the problems with that thinking is that, especially with these old longhorn cows, those old cattle, those old steers, and that they had big old horns on them, they were big cattle, and when they would go to mill like that, those horns, of course, would cause damage to each other, and they ended up with a lot of down cattle, a lot of crippled cattle, because of that when they were milling. So the idea behind the lantern outfits was this. On the chuck wagon, they always had a lantern burning there. Well, they would hang additional lanterns up there, one for each of the cowboys that were on that trail drive. And what would happen is, if there was something that caused those old cows, to stampede, and they get up and they could do that in a heartbeat, just up and run, off they go. Well, what the cowboys were instructed to do was to get to that chuck wagon. And of course, they all had their night horses and that all pitched right out there. Get up there, get a lantern lit, and then ride out along those cattle and come alongside of them. But instead of trying to get them to mill into that circle, to push them and keep them going straight. And what happened was, when they saw those lanterns coming up alongside of them, because they were used at the bed grounds as they drove up the trails, of course, that lantern gave them a sense of comfort. There were people there around them, and of course the cowboys were always kind of around them. And they would start to slow down. And then, within a mile or so, he says, they would come down to a walk, and then those cowboys could take and bring them back to the bed grounds, and you ended up not losing near so many cattle and crippling and having problems with so many cows in that type of a situation. And you certainly didn't lose some cowboys and to get mixed in the middle of all that mess. So that's where this piece comes from. Now you can see these two cowboys here. He's coming around the corner here, and they both got their lanterns. You can see the two lanterns right there. Now, these two cowboys are very unique in terms of individuals, and I tried to do some kind of interesting things to give you a real sense of the period of this era. Now you'll notice this guy here, this is the most popular style of legging of that particular era, especially 1870s and that. It's a fringed shotgun legging, and you can see here he's got little snaps that were on the inside, and it kind of laced them together. Fringe on the outside. He's got his 6-shooter right up here. Of course, they all carried some kind of weapon. Now, this spur, that's called a full drop shank spur. There was everything from a straight shank spur, which you typically would ride broncs with, and they would go to a quarter drop, half drop, 3/4 drop, and then a full drop. And that's what this particular spur is here. Now, he's got a wooden stirrup on there, a wooden oxbow type stirrup on there. Now, this particular saddle, both of these rigs, especially during this period, they had what's called a sandstag rig, which means there's a piece of leather that comes up and wraps around the fork, and that's where your front cinch is attached to. And then you can see he's got hair bags back here, a Cheyenne roll. He's got his old grass rope there. Now this is a broke horse, and so you've got a bridle on him. You've got a bit and bridle. This guy here, he's got no leggings on. He's riding a young horse. You can see he's got a hackamore on him. That's this rig here that's on his head with a blindfold on that. He's got a straight shank bronc spur because he's riding a youngster. You notice he's got no leggings on. He's just jumped out of his bedroll, and he's just getting started here, and this old horse is starting to just send off. And you can see just how dynamic it really rolls around, has lots of action, nice negative spaces, and he's just pushing this old horse off, and his old lanterns are flying, and this horse is listening back. You can see all that good action going on. So that's No Time to Lose. Thanks so much for letting me tell you about it.